welcome to this week's Travelin Young, and we're back again.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about consumer shopping habits and some differences between the U.S. and Denmark when it comes to shopping.
And how we've changed a little.
Bit. Yeah, so consumer shopping and your habits, there you go. On this week's Travelin Young. Okay, so I think that I feel like there's definitely differences between how people shop here, and there's different types of shopping. So we can say like grocery shopping, and then other stuff shopping, non-grocery stuff shopping. Then we see grocery. Then there's other necessities like clothes, and then there's the things you don't need that we buy anyway. The luxury shopping.
Well, then there's also like health and beauty.
Yeah, sure, but these are like But like, let's grocery shopping.
Yes.
So in the U.S., you typically go, fill up your car, and then come home and do that like once a week.
Yeah, exactly. We do not do that here. I've really shifted to, both because our fridge tends to be is small compared to what we had in the U.S. I shop daily or like every couple days. And so I'll go and get things for just a couple meals. And that's been a big change, but it also, I think, pushes us we eat much fresher. There's not a lot of like processed food. So I'll go because I'm cooking it that day, I'll get fresh vegetables, I get fresh meats, fresh cheese, everything. So it's like really changed our eating habits as well, I think.
Yeah. Well, we also, we don't eat out as much.
No, definitely don't eat out as much.
But, in most places, like you take the train to work. And in most places, there's grocery stores right next to the train station. So it's easy. Grocery
stores everywhere.
It's easy to just like walk out of the train station, go get your groceries for the night, and come back. Where, it's not like in the U.S. where you'd be driving and having to get out of your car to go somewhere else. And maybe you're like, that's annoying. So let me just do that once and have stuff in my house. So I think, the food shopping is very, very different here.
Yeah, and it also is very much, I think one of the big differences, especially from where we lived in the U.S., is that when we would go food shopping, we'd usually go to Target, which also had a bunch of other stuff. Whereas here, it's, dedicated grocery store. And they might have like some other things, especially if you go to something like a Quickly or Foodtex, but by and large, it's really just food and pantry staples. So that's a big difference too, because then it's very goal oriented. You're just going in and I'm getting food and I can focus on that.
Yeah. So then another big difference just in other things that you would buy, less groceries, but more other stuff, is this whole like Main Street or like centralized outdoor shopping that has a combination of maybe some, I wouldn't say international brands, some international brands in like the main streets in big cities, but more like local mom and pops and stuff.
There's a lot of independently owned businesses. You see chains, but you see just as many kind of independently owned businesses for sure. And
all the like towns that we've lived in, there's always like a central place that has a mix of that. They tend to also maybe have grocery, but then when you go to a big city like Copenhagen, it's more of just like anything. And you, instead of going to although I will say the malls seem to do fairly well here.
Yeah, they're really popular here.
Lundu Store Center and
Fields.
And these places are popular.
Yeah.
But it's still less of a mall culture here than the U.S. where you
definitely
go to a mall or a big department store that has everything, or like a Target, as you mentioned, that has a bunch of stuff, and not go to these individual stores. Where here, like there's this like pedestrian shopping experience that I think doesn't really exist as heavy. There's pockets of it, but not so much.
No, and I definitely think it kind of speaks to what you were saying. Like you have to go to different stores for different things. So like if you want household goods, they may have a little bit of Foodtex, but really like you go to an Imerico or Basics and More or something like that to find household goods. And then if you want to do clothes shopping, there's different stores for clothes shopping. There's different stores to get your beauty item, for me and Maya, like go and get a makeup and stuff. And then again, there's different stores for getting, like Band-Aids and healthcare stuff. You go to the Apotex. So it's just a very kind of disjointed shopping experience, but then it forces you to kind of go up and down these pedestrian areas.
Yeah, and while you might kind of do that at a mall, you're driving to the mall, going to the mall versus these like centralized community zones. So what we want to show here now is this has been a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I've been sitting on this footage for a while. A couple Christmases ago, it was like maybe 2022.
Could be, yeah.
We were in Kentucky
and
visited Hopkinsville. And we spoke to Bryson, who you may or may not remember if you're a regular viewer of ours. Yeah. He actually did like a...
he watched our tax video.
Yeah, he did like a response video.
Yeah.
A reaction video to one of our videos. And he lives in Kentucky. And we were in Kentucky visiting family. So I reached out to him and he spent a little bit of time with us that day. Yeah. And here's some footage of us talking to him, Miranda talking to him on the main street of Hopkinsville and really talking through like the differences of how the shopping and kind of community experience of Main Street has changed significantly in a town like Hopkinsville in the US. And yeah, so let's jump to that. And by the way, there's a secret Try It On Tuesday at the end. I've resurfaced that for this. So let's check out Hopkinsville and some time with Bryson.
So Bryson, we're here quite literally on Main Street. And that's a big thing. I come from a small town as well, so I kind of understand the concept of Main Street. And back in the day, so these buildings date back to like the late 1800s, which for most of America is pretty old. Like a lot of the buildings get torn down. So this is old. But back in the day, like this really was just the center of town and everybody would come here and you'd come up and down and all the shops would be here. But a lot of these small towns have been hit really hard by the recession over the past 10, 15, 20 years even. So how has that affected you personally? Because you're still living here in this small town.
As far as on Main Street, downtown, we see that we have a lot of walking areas. We have a lot of the sidewalks where you can easily walk up and down to the different shops that we have and a lot of to these older buildings. However, we don't have a lot of businesses and a lot of the actual availability here where you can walk and go to the different stores and see the different buildings. And what we do have downtown is the more mom and pop and family owned businesses, but the majority of places here in Hopkinsville are on the other side where it's all new, like franchise chain restaurants. And the unfortunate side to there is there's not really any walking areas.
Yeah.
So we don't have the sidewalk where you can walk from one restaurant to the other or go from a bar to somewhere else. You really have to be on this side, which is much older, in order to have that type of access.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because then all the stores are over on the part where you don't have access. And that gets to like, I think Danes talk a lot, especially in Copenhagen, where we can get around everywhere we need to go with public transportation. You cannot do that here when you get out into rural America. I think one of the interesting differences between Denmark and here and is that they do kind of protect those main street areas in the towns in Denmark, and you do still see a lot of those mom and pop shops.
Oh, absolutely.
Still up. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely find it hard whenever one of these buildings, unfortunately, if there's an incident, whether it be from the tornadoes that we had a few weeks ago or just something happens electrical and one of the buildings catches fire and burns down, it is a big deal because that's a major part of history. As I'm sure you guys can see, a lot of these buildings are from the late 1800s. And with that being something that gets lost, with the modern views of America and the United States being a lot newer or younger than the Scandinavian countries, it really does. We don't have near as much history, so the history that we do have, we want to preserve it and protect it the best we can, for sure.
Yeah.
Welcome to Try It On Tuesday, and we're here with Bryson to try some bourbon. This is the Kentucky state-winning, that's back there in the background with it right there, gold-winning bourbon in Kentucky for 2021. It's Kentucky, we gotta have some bourbon, right?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, let's do this. Try It On Tuesday. Cheers. Skål, as you would say in Denmark. Skål, yeah. It coats the inside of your mouth quite well.
Yes, it has a very smooth.
I feel like you're not supposed to talk immediately after you taste it because my tongue is having sensations that say don't speak right now, but I want to lick the inside of this little. I'm gonna have to take some of this back with me. I think Kentucky. I got to get Kentucky bourbon when I'm here. Thank you for being the guide for the day
absolutely.
and for trying this with us. So today's Trout on Tuesday. Now, so in all honesty, we've had a whole bunch already. So we're like 6 or 7 in. So
and then we're going to get to try it directly off the still.
Off the distill, yeah. So the slurred speech is not from this one, but all the ones we've had before now. But that was a very good Trout on Tuesday here in Kentucky at a distillery, drinking some bourbon.
At Casey Jones, yes.
While in Kentucky, you have to have
some bourbon.
And I was still drinking at that time, so it was nice to visit the brewery or the distillery. And thank you to Bryson who spent time with us. We also went and did other things, but this was the best, I think, thing to pull into a video because it's an interesting contrast. Especially because the size of Hopkinsville is around 32,000 people, which is similar to Hillerød in Denmark, where you walk through Hillerød, there's a pedestrian road, there's a lot of outdoor activity of people shopping, walking around on their feet, vibrant, and there's also a cool castle. Where, the difference too is that Hopkinsville is maybe the same population, but it's much more spread out because people are taking cars, as you saw my not so elegant scanning of the map to show like, this stretch of big road where parking lots are everywhere for people to drive and park. And that's a big difference. It's happened in a lot of outside of like major central places like New York and stuff like that. A lot of other places, you've got to take your car. You got to go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean.
And these old main streets are just kind of like dying off.
Yeah, I mean, that's even happened not to the extent as it has in Hopkinsville, but I think that's something that even my hometown has struggled with in Tennessee because, we had kind of a central area, but now they have this big, huge shopping centers, outlet mall things that are maybe 30 minutes away, and they're just not investing in downtown the way that they were, and it's really kind of dying. So it is really sad to see how these, beautiful places that used to be these promenades and main streets are just kind of slowly disappearing, especially as things happen to buildings. They just don't repair them because it's not worth it.
Yeah. And even more, if you noticed, that's a main street, but it is a street.
Yeah, you're
still
driving.
Cars to go around there. So if you're in the car to go to Main Street, you might as well go to a mall.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big difference. Like there isn't this like hub of pedestrian area. He talked about sidewalks. You can walk for sure. But I mean, it's very different when you still need a car to get there. Then you might as well out of convenience drive somewhere else, right? Whereas, I think the public transit culture and all these other things kind of contribute to a much more pedestrian kind of
and the shops
here.
do so much, I think, to kind of attract that pedestrian vibe, especially if I think of in Hillerød, they have all the shops and then all of the shops have things outside the front and it like makes it, there's tastings and, there's all kinds
flea
of
markets
crafts
on weekends
and flea markets and like all this stuff that is happening. And I get the sense that Danes are very protective of that. And I know that there's actually, even with the law saying that you can't have these really huge stores like Bilka, in a sense to protect these smaller shops. And I really appreciate that kind of lifestyle is still very vibrant here.
Yeah. So moving on to the last part, which is I was going to talk about like luxury goods. And this is like very different. And I can just talk from my own personal experience, which is I feel like in the US, we were more likely to buy something on credit.
Yeah.
And that's
definitely.
No longer the case.
No, definitely not.
We buy within the means of what we have.
Yeah.
I mean, with the exception of obviously our house and a car that we're gonna, that we're
you have to get loans
but
for
like
those things.
Other stuff, no. Like we don't buy things that we don't need if we can't afford it. Now we might buy things that we don't need if we can't afford it, although far less of that as well. I think so. Like I think our mentality has changed around like what do we need? I think I hope that we're not influenced by kind of like media and trends and stuff as much as we probably were before. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's it. We definitely do buy luxury items, but now it's never about status, and it's always very much like it's a special occasion when you do that. And, I just had my birthday, and I don't know if anybody follows me on Threads, but I had posted about how Josh had gotten me this, some really nice gifts and stuff, but was some of the things like we had talked about for 6 months or something, you know, and so we don't have this sense of I need to go out and buy. Now it's very much like, what do we actually need? And every now and then we'll splurge and buy something. But in general, I just don't shop as much as I used to.
But I think this has also changed in the U.S. because, like, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, my parents, you know, I'd only get things for birthdays or Christmas. They wouldn't just like go to Target and buy me something and they wouldn't do that for themselves either. So I believe like the older generation was used to also was in this transition of like being more frugal and kind of like maybe grateful of what they've achieved and trying to be more frugal and save and all that stuff, which I think our generation, that was a significant change in how people just are and behaved. And then now it's probably even worse. Like my generation is probably, there's a lot of people that maybe it'll come back because of the economic situation. I think, and people like graduate from college and struggle to even get jobs. So they have less opportunity for that. But I mean, I feel like maybe it's a cycle, but I think our generation definitely is more kind of materialistic in a way. Whereas my parents were not.
So I think it's interesting because when we had just gotten married, and actually when Maya was younger and even in elementary school, you know, the economy was doing quite well. And so there was this very consumerist mentality of just go buy all the time. And now I'm wondering, we've been gone for the US for a long time. So now I'm kind of wondering if the generations that are now younger, if their parents are having to be more like your parents because of the economy. So maybe it will be a bit of a cycle that they'll pull back and not shop as much.
Maybe, but I'm afraid that like the quality of things have diminished in that time
the quality
too.
has definitely diminished.
You know, you kind of have to shop more frequently because you have to replace quite a bit of the things that you buy because the quality is so much lower. Whereas if you go back to my parents' generation and before, the goods that you buy will probably last longer, much like the things that you buy here typically last longer and are better quality. Clothes and things like that. So, I mean, I remember like clothes growing up, you know, my brother was older than me. Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily awesome that I got his old clothes, but clothes wouldn't just like, you know, disintegrate, you know? So like you can have a winter coat and somebody else could wear your winter coat. Yeah. And I think that stuff when you buy, you know, at Walmart and those kinds of things, which a lot of people kind of shop for clothes at places like that because of the economy, they're not getting long-lasting things, which puts them in a cycle where they have to shop frequently. Yeah,
and I will say, I think here it is much more accepted, at least when I was, you know, in my 20s and early 30s, like the big thing was to have a huge wardrobe and have all these clothes and all these options and stuff. And when we came here, I feel like it's very accepted to have, you know, a very limited wardrobe of really good quality items. And the same thing with household goods. Like you have a more sparsely, you know, decorated house, but it's really quality furniture that's going to last you a long time. And the price reflects that. It's really expensive. But you just shift your shopping habits and like, you don't go eat out. You don't go shopping all the time. You appreciate what you have and you take care of what you have because it is so costly.
Yeah. So there's our thoughts on kind of consumer habits from, you know, basically grocery shopping to what's happening in just like how and where you shop, and then
how things are changing.
Yeah, it's certainly changed for us. Yeah. Moving to Denmark. So if you have any thoughts on this, let us know. I'd be curious to know about your perspective. Put it in the comments and we'll read through them and respond, and we'll end it there. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.